All right, guys, week 3 of college football is in the books. Let's get started on the recap. So if you look at this spreadsheet right here, you can tell I did not have a good week 3. This was my worst week since week 12 of the 2016 season, where I went 1-13, with the only win being the Iowa money line over Michigan. It was that week 12 of 2016 that spurred a lot of change in my approach, which led to profitable 2017 and 2018 seasons. I'm using the same approach as I used in 2017 and 2018, and not off to a good start this year. I was only 39.4% against the spread. I hit some big money lines, but overall was not profitable there, and minus 5.1 units for the week, which isn't good. Now, before I go any further, I know what you're probably thinking. Why should I continue to watch this guy's channel when he's losing? Well, that's a good point. But the name of this channel is not Sports Betting Winners. It is not Winning Sports Picks. I have never, and I never will, say that my picks will win. I have said that from day one. I will never guarantee that my picks are winners or say that they are winners. I just say that they are picks. And I show the approach and methodology and rhyme and reasoning behind my picks, and I sink or swim with them, but I will never say that they are winners. That is the whole point of my channel compared to all the other YouTube channels out there focused on sports betting. My channel is based in reality. Those other channels are based on hype and false promises. The purpose of my channel is to show you how somebody like me with a data science mathematical background and a sports background approaches sports betting, and my mathematical approaches how they actually do week to week. And reality is this. This is reality right here. You're going to have losing days like this. You're going to have losing weeks like this. You're going to have losing stretches like this. That's reality. All those other channels out there that do nothing but promise winners, 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 and follow my picks and you're going to win, 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 that's not reality. This is reality. It happens. Even if your approach is sound, even if your math is sound and you put in all the hard work and everything, this is going to happen. The very first video I uploaded to my channel, 99% of people who try this are long-term losers. It's very hard to break into that 1% of winners. It's only week 3. I'm going to try to get this turned around. I'm not going to overreact. I'm not going to completely scrap what has worked for me the past 2 seasons and overreact to this. But it's going to be a challenge to end the season with profitability. I have a hole to dig myself out of, and I might not get there. But that is reality. So I know what you're still thinking. Well, this guy's channel's not worth watching. The point of my channel isn't to tail my picks and win money with me. So I issue you this challenge. Call it the Sports Betting Truth Challenge. Go ahead and watch one of those other hundreds of YouTube channels out there that do nothing but promise you that you're going to win if you follow their picks, and they do nothing but give out winners and how great they are and how much money they make and all that stuff, and how good they are at betting on sports and how smart they are and how they crush all of that. Go watch their channels for, I don't know, a month or 2. Long enough to where you can get an accurate picture of how they actually do and not just a short-term sample. I guarantee you, assuming they don't delete their videos that show them losing or whatever, I guarantee you that they're going to have a lot of days and weeks like this right here. They're just not going to talk about it, because that's what all those other channels do. They don't talk about their losses. They either hide them or embellish them, and on the rare occasions they do talk about their losses, it's nothing but excuse making and doubling down, all kinds of other overreactions. Assuming they even talk about their losses. Most of them don't. That's what sets my channel apart. I'm not only afraid to talk about the losses, but I embrace them, because it's your losses that you learn the most from, and it also reflects reality, because that is one of the major parts of sports betting, is that you are going to lose. The hope being that you win slightly more than you lose. So which would you rather have? A channel that does nothing but promise you're going to win, 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 and then loses? Or a channel like mine that says, hey, you're going to have some losing days or weeks or stretches. But hopefully, if you do everything right, you might have more winning days than your losing days. Which would you rather have? Someone who makes false promises that can't deliver on, or someone who is realistic with you up front? I know what I would rather choose. So, with all that out of the way, let's move on to recapping week 3. Now, week 3 got started off on the wrong foot with Washington State. This was a bad beat. Washington State had the end zone in sight to cover, and the quarterback trips. They settle for a field goal. Houston marches down the field and backdoors in the last minute. That was a tough one, and that kind of set the tone for the rest of the week. Maryland and Temple was a split. I told you I was keying on the Temple money line, and that paid off. Miami, that was a tough one. They got off 10-0 off the bat, and it looked good. And then 2 of their offensive linemen got hurt, and their offense sputtered out for the rest of the game, and they didn't cover. That was tough. South Carolina, that was a good beat in favor of me, one of the only ones of the week, but they scored a touchdown on the last play of the game to cover. UT San Antonio, this was a tough one. UT San Antonio scores a touchdown, but they go for 2 for whatever reason. I have no idea. They didn't need to, but they went for 2 and did not get it. But they're still only down by 11. But Army marches the length of the field and gets down to the goal line, and instead of going to the victory formation, they keep playing and score a touchdown to cover and lose me the game. And that was the theme for the week. A lot of teams that could have gone to the victory formation and should have, did not. That was just one of them. Tulsa, it wasn't quite a victory formation situation, but Oklahoma State went for it on 4th down, late for the game, up by 12 with like 2 minutes left. They didn't really need to, but they went for it and scored on that play. If they did not score on that play, they just knee out the clock and I win. But it didn't happen. Iowa, 2-point spread, 1-1 because they didn't complete a 2-point conversion. Western Kentucky, this was a tough one. They are down by 17 and on the goal line, 1st and goal, and Louisville stops them. UMass, they really are as bad as my system says they are. Wow. Kentucky, another one. So Florida could have gone to the victory formation, up by 1 on like the 22-yard line, but instead of doing the victory formation with less than a minute to go, they run up the middle and score on a 70-plus yard touchdown run to give me the push. That was a tough one. Syracuse, another one. Clemson could have just gone to the victory formation, didn't score up the middle on a long run to cover that one. Again, that was a tough one. Rice. Now, Rice looked like they had backdoored it, right? They looked like they had backdoored it at the end to give me the cover, but Texas runs back the kickoff with less than a minute to go to give them the cover. That was a tough one to swallow. Arizona State, that was a good beat for me. They got the 12 men on the field penalty to help me out there. Here's the deal with money lines. I always go conservative with them, but going forward, I might be putting a little more on them because they have been better for me so far this year. Had I bet the same unit size that I had on the spread bets, I would have had a much better week. But since I go conservative with my money line plays, it didn't quite pay off. But let me tell you something about bad beats, right? I had more bad ones than good ones this week, but over time, they balance out. You cannot blame your long-term losing on bad beats. If you're a long-term loser, you're a long-term loser because your approach sucks. It's not because of bad beats, because they balance out over time. In the long run, for every bad beat you get, you're going to get a good beat. That's how it works. It's like blackjack. Everybody complains about the other players at the blackjack table, right? Oh, if he didn't hit there, I would have won my hand. Or if he would have stood there instead of hit, I would have won my hand, but he made me lose. The thing with blackjack, and just like sports betting, for every time the idiot blackjack player helps you, he also hurts you. It balances out over time, and this is no different. So you can't blame your bad beats on your long-term losses. Yes, it might explain short-term losses like it does for me this week, but over time it's going to smooth out. I'm probably going to have a week this year where I have a bunch of good beats go my way, and that'll help me in the short run. But over time, it smooths out. So overall for the week, I was down 4.93 units on the spread, 0.17 on money line for a total minus 5.1. I also want to point out I added Bowling Green, Notre Dame, and Indiana after the video recorded on Wednesday. I post all those additional plays that I add on my Twitter account. Only Notre Dame won for me, Bowling Green and Indiana lost. So season to date, I'm down 8 units on spread bets. I'm only hitting 44.8%, so I'm hoping for some mean regression there. Money lines, I'm still up for the year. Total, down 6 units. So we can turn the ship around. I'm not in too big of a hole. Looking at the week 3 results, the blender did not do good for me this week, but the ATM, 16 units of losses. That is just terrible for me so far this year, and that's been my horse that I've rode on the past 2 years of profitability is the ATM, and it's just not doing it for me this year. More on that in a second. For money lines, it wasn't much better. All losses except on these minor indicators right here, but the ATM still did the best on margin standard error this week. So like I've been saying the past few weeks, this is still a good sign. It's still predicting accurately, it's just on the wrong side, so I'm hoping for some mean regression there. So year to date, it's the combo cover that's doing best, even though it's still negative, followed by the blender. ATM, my horse, is just terrible. I mean, 26.7 units down in 4 weeks. My hypothetical theoretical loss at this point is about 13 units, so it's double that of a coin flip, which is bad. So I'm hoping for some mean regression there. Money lines, it's the nickel that's doing best right now, although ATM, which is the horse I ride on, isn't too far behind. The ATM is responsible for the success I've had this year on money lines. Going over to the combo input analysis, this is a report I run where I combine all the different metrics with each other to see which one is doing best. And for spreads, it's actually combo cover percent combined with the ATM and nickel margins that is doing best on peak. It has a peak ROI of 22.3%, and that's very close to what I've ridden with in the past 2 years. It's actually flipped. In the past 2 years, I've run with ATM nickel on the margin side and combo on the cover side. This year, it's exactly flipped. So it's the same concepts that are working for me that I'm probably going to ride with going forward. In Moneyline, no surprise, Moneyline ATM dollar, the same Moneyline approach I've used the past 2 years for profitability is also at the top once again this year. So at the very least, I'm seeing consistency year to year with my approach. It's just that it hasn't worked out so far, but it's not too far off from what won me money in 2017 and 2018. So this shows that I shouldn't overreact and just need to stay the course. So my keys for week 4 are going to be combo cover edge, ATM margin edge, and nickel margin edge going forward for week 4. And running that in report builder right here, as you can see, 3.4 is our value. So anything 3.4 and higher is going to be what I'm going to key on for spreads in week 4. 3.4 being the ATM margin edge. And for money lines, it's going to be ATM dollar, same as 2017 and 2018. The peak being 3.3%, so no change from last week. The only change this week being I'm adding in the dollar criteria onto the ATM. So before I close, I'm sure the question is, why is the ATM doing so bad? Well, I have a couple of theories out there that concerned me when I was running the numbers for week 3. And that is the calibration. Now, my data I go back to 2008 with, but I normalize everything. You see this in baseball stats. Baseball stats are normalized and calibrated so you can measure them across eras and years. For example, in 2019 baseball, there's so many more home runs than there were in 2013. So to be able to compare 2019 numbers with 2013 numbers, apples to apples, you normalize the stats with constants so you can compare them. And I do the same thing here. The problem being is that there's some teams this year in 2019 that are skewing some things that are making these constants a bit corrupted in my opinion. One of those teams being Oklahoma. Oklahoma's offense is historically good, right? Too good. And the difference this year from last year, even though their offenses the past couple of years have been just as good, the difference this year is that my preseason ratings that I use, which are still heavily influenced right now this early in the season, use a weighted 4-year average. And here's the deal. Their 2014 season, where their offense wasn't that good, dropped off the ledger this year. So all of Oklahoma's weighted 4-year average has these awesome seasons since 2015 in there, which is just skewing their numbers so high that it makes all these other teams in the past whose numbers I key off of look weak by comparison, right? And the problem with that being is that Oklahoma's offense is so far ahead of everybody else's that it makes everybody else's offensive numbers this year seem average. And that's what I was seeing when I was running numbers this past week, is that everybody's score seemed pretty low. And that's because Oklahoma's numbers are so high that all these other constant calibrated offenses this year are being treated as average because Oklahoma's so far ahead. For example, it says Clemson has a 75% percentile offense this year, which is just ridiculous. They haven't looked crisp yet, but their offense is definitely more than 75th percentile, but because Oklahoma's is so good, that's where they're being pigeonholed. But once the preseason ratings start falling off the ledger, this will all work itself out once we're just using this season's data only. But until then, it's going to be a problem, and I don't know how to approach it yet. The other theory I have is that I actually did make a change in the offseason to the method that worked for me the past 2 years. Now I know what you're thinking. Why would you mess with something that works for you? Well, I was just trying to make it better. I went 57.1% last year. I was expecting regression to the mean, and I thought that adding a fourth element would help it because my system uses 3 elements in there. I'm not going to go into too much detail to give it away, but it uses 3 different facets that make up the overall system. I added a 4th unit this year. And the 4th unit I added, I did a lot of back testing. The 4th unit I added was a good one, but I'm wondering if that might be overfitting everything. You have to wonder. What I'm going to do this week is I'm going to run the same exact model I used in 2017 and 2018 side by side with my current iteration this year and see if there's any differences. Because that 4th unit I added, it's good and it proved itself, at least in my back testing, but who knows, it might be the reason that things aren't doing as well this year. Well, that wraps up my week 3 recap. Again, This happens. This is reality. It's why my channel is called Sports Betting Truth and not Sports Betting Winners. This is reality of sports betting. No matter how good you are, no matter how sound your approach is, this is going to happen. It's part of it. You have to learn how to deal with it and learn from it. Until Wednesday, when I come out with my Week 4 picks, this is Sports Betting Truth signing off.